We're increasing the age limit for RRSP to RRIF conversion to 71 from 69. And I'll stop and fill you in on the rest after QP.
Yes, unfortunately I must interrupt. The honourable member from Lethbridge. He'll have 6 minutes remaining when this matter returns before the House. Déclaration de député, statements by members. The honourable member for Thunder Bay, Superior North.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is facing two huge challenges: a large and growing gap in income and a total failure to reduce CO2. The Conservatives have no plans to reduce either CO2 or poverty. There is a simple solution. Carbon dividend, as proposed by the Citizens Climate Lobby, will price fossil fuels at the source. And CRA will pay those carbon fees straight back to every Canadian family on an equal basis. Energy conservers and low-income Canadians will make money on carbon dividend. The Liberals have yet to say how they will price carbon. The NDP is stuck on cumbersome cap and trade, and the Conservatives are stuck on exporting low-value crude at a 30% discount. The Green Party supports carbon dividend. I call upon all parties to join together to reduce poverty and dangerous climate change through carbon fee and dividend. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Nejoit-Témiscouata-Lebesgue. Mr. Speaker, we learned yesterday that the Committee on the Status of Endangered Wildlife in Canada has moved the St. Lawrence beluga whale from the threatened list to the endangered species list. This is no surprise to anyone. The St. Lawrence beluga population has declined by 10% over 10 years and now stands at less than 900 individuals. In recent years, dozens of dead baby belugas have been found on the river, and scientists can't explain why. If they had resources, maybe they could, but the Conservatives cut the ecotoxicology department at the Maurice Lamontagne Institute, which was studying the beluga's ecosystem. It's clear that this slow decline of the beluga is an environmental disaster, but it's also an economic disaster. The belugas attract thousands of tourists every year, generating an estimated $150 million every year for Charlevoix and the lower St. Lawrence. The oil tanker port project at Kakuna was problematic before, and now it's socially unacceptable, and it must be halted.
The honourable member for Palliser.
10 years ago, we met those characters on Corner Gas, and they're back, thanks to a successful Kickstart campaign to fund a feature film. Mr. Speaker, last night I was delighted to attend the Ottawa premiere of Corner Gas, the movie, after red carpet galas in Saskatoon and Regina. Canadians can grab some popcorn to watch Brent, Wanda, Lacey, Emma, Davis, Karen, Hank, and Oscar come to the rescue of Canada's favourite small towns in theatres across the country from December 3rd to the 7th. That starts tomorrow, folks. Following the big screen run, I expect the collector's edition of the DVD will be found under a few Christmas trees this holiday season. Mr. Speaker, as the MP for Dog River, Rollo, Saskatchewan, I ask my colleagues to join me in congratulating the entire Corner Gas cast and for putting us in stitches once again.
The honourable member for Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, the Rollo area farm where I was raised is just 5.5 miles straight east of Ruby's Diner in the town of Dog River in the hit CTV series Corner Gas. Through 6 seasons, 107 episodes, and 6 Geminis, Corner Gas captivated audiences in Saskatchewan, across the country, and abroad. Each broadcast attracted 1 million viewers and more, and now Corner Gas is a movie. With the down-to-earth nature of rural Saskatchewan expressed through the most engaging humor, Corner Gas was the brainchild of Tisdale's extraordinary Brent Butt. To him and to all his co-stars, Gabriel Miller, Fred Awanek, Eric Peterson, Janet Wright, Tara Spencer-Nairn, Lauren Cardinal, and Nancy Robertson, and to producers Virginia Thompson and David Story. Congratulations from the Parliament of Canada. Thank you for your excellence, and break a leg with Corner Gas on the big screen.
The honourable member for Dauphin, Swan River, Marquette.
Mr. Speaker, our government is making reasonable and common sense amendments to Canada's firearms laws. Bill C-42, the Common Sense Firearms Licensing Act, will ensure that Canada's communities remain safe while reducing red tape. Prior to the introduction of this bill, our laws had not been updated for over 20 years. The Common Sense Firearms Licensing Act will ensure mandatory safety training courses and needless and ineffective bureaucracy surrounding the authority to transport firearms to ranges, gunsmiths, and the firearm owner's home and property. It will prohibit the possession of firearms by individuals convicted of domestic violence and ensure that the classification of firearms is accountable to the public and informed with independent expert advice. But all the opposition wants to do is fearmonger. The Liberal leader uses fear and dishonesty to make ridiculous and unfounded claims. Unfortunately, Canadians can expect nothing more from the party that brought in the long gun registry and is itching to bring it back. Only our Conservative government will always stand up for Canada's law-abiding hunters, trappers, and sports shooters.
The honourable member for La Pointe de l'Île. Mr. Speaker, a roof is a right. It's a phrase that's used by many human rights organizations. Canada is the only G7 country that doesn't have a national housing strategy. The government's inaction when it comes to social housing is unacceptable. In the 2012-2013 budget, funds for social housing dropped by $21.7 million. The province's budgets are already maxed out. The lack of social housing units and of adequate funding means that 1.5 million households don't have access to adequate housing. The situation in La Pointe de l'Île is dire. In the Rivière-des-Prairies-Pointe-aux-Trembles neighborhood, 6,500 people are paying more than 30% of their income for housing. According to Infologis, an organization in Montreal, this is alarming because families have to cut in other essential spending, for example, for food. In Pointe-aux-Trembles, 19% of households devote over 50% of their income to housing. It's unacceptable. In 2009, the Prime Minister promised before the UN Human Rights Commission to work with the provinces and territories to ensure that all Canadians.
Honourable member for Yorkton, Melville.
Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to welcome members of the Fur Institute of Canada to Ottawa for their annual Fur Day on the Hill. When Canadians hear about the fur industry, they probably think back to their high school history lessons about the traders and voyageurs who helped build this great country. But did you know that the modern fur industry contributed over $1 billion to the Canadian economy last year? Retail fur sales in North America topped $4 billion, and globally they were close to $36 billion. There are an estimated 50,000 trappers in Canada, and 40% of those are from our First Nations and Inuit communities. About 250 families in each of our federal ridings directly depend on the fur industry for their livelihood. And it's not just trapping. Farmed fur in Canada from 300 operations countrywide is worth $280 million. So you see, Mr. Speaker, the fur trade isn't something for the history books. It's a vital and growing contributor to our national economy. Thank you.
The honourable member for Kildonan and St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, today marks the occasion of the International Day for the Abolition of Slavery. Today we recognize that modern-day forms of slavery, such as trafficking in persons, sexual exploitation, child labor, forced marriage, and child soldiers continue to thrive with global profits exceeding $150 billion. Today, we also recognize that while virtually every nation has outlawed slavery, 20 to 30 million men, women, and children are still enslaved, Mr. Speaker, some for generations. This is outrageous. Slavery is a vicious assault on basic human rights that we cherish and uphold. But let us not forget that abolishing slavery requires far more than lip service and reflection on past victories in our countries. To abolish slavery, we must be united in listening to the voices of the victims. We must be united in our actions, and we must be united in our partnerships. I am convinced that we can abolish slavery in our generation. We can do better for victims of slavery. We must do better.
The honourable member for Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, since I was first elected in 2002, I have repeatedly called for the government to develop a national automotive strategy. In 2003, the Canadian Auto Partnership Council released a report calling on the federal government to protect the industry and create a policy. Promise after promise, including from the former Conservative Industry Minister, fell by the wayside. Here we are 11 years after CAPC's first report, and once again these industry leaders and experts have released another call for action to develop a strategy. They are clear that the time to act is now, or Canada will lose our important foothold in this industry. Who has a national auto strategy? The UK, France, Germany, Japan, Korea, Australia, China, India, Sweden, Mexico, Malaysia, and Nigeria. They are all competing for the same jobs and have been such a large part of Canada's history and our economic strength for generations. It's time that this government work with industry leaders and labour leaders to create a real policy, one that innovates our industry, challenges our competition, and puts workers back to work and a paycheck in a household.
The honourable member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Mr. Speaker, the constituents in my riding of Kitchener-Conestoga believe that mothers and fathers should be able to make the most important decisions that affect their own children. That's why our new family tax cut and enhanced universal child care benefit will give 100% of families with kids an average of more than $1,100 per year to spend on their priorities. The majority of benefits flow to low and middle income families. Our government trusts parents to invest in their children, but the opposition are against putting money in the pockets of hardworking families. They'd rather take that money away and give it to bureaucrats here in Ottawa. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we will not hike taxes like the Liberals and NDP propose. Rather, we're proud to be putting money back into the pockets of Canadians where it belongs. Thank you.
And the honourable member for Edmonton-Strathcona.
I think all members in this place agree Canadians should be able to raise their families in a clean, healthy environment. Regrettably, what is lacking is the political will in this government to actually extend the right to Canadians or their communities. What is particularly galling is that 2 decades ago, Canada committed to do exactly that. Under the North American Agreement on Environmental Cooperation, Canada must ensure Canadians are given a voice in all decisions impacting their environment. Yet the pattern of behaviour by federal government since has been to declare those grandiose commitments in international arenas but fail to act on them back home. To make matters worse, this government rescinded even the meagre environmental rights and duties once accorded under federal law and without public consultation or consent. To remedy this, I once again tabled the Canadian Environmental Bill of Rights. My bill imposes clear duties on the government to protect our environment, empower Canadians to hold the government accountable, and allow the public to participate in all decisions impacting their environment. In the public interest, I implore this government to comply with their commitments, restore the rescinded environmental measures, make Canadians' right to a clean, healthy environment.
The honourable member for Glengarry Prescott Russell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. 100% of families with children in Glengarry, Prescott, Russell, and across Canada will be better off thanks to our new family tax cut. As Conservatives, we are expanding and increasing the enhanced universal child care benefit so that every family in Canada, like families in my riding, will receive over $1,900 per year for each child under the age of 6. Mr. Speaker, over 6 years, this would amount to more than $11,000 per child, and a family that decides to have 3 children could benefit by more than $30,000. This new money will make a real difference for parents by allowing them to invest in their children's future. But, Mr. Speaker, the NDP have never met a tax they didn't like, and the Liberals have never seen a tax they wouldn't hike. Both the Liberals and the NDP would reverse our tax cuts and force every Canadian to pay more. Only our Conservative government can be trusted to put more money back into the pockets of Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday marked the 9th anniversary of the settlement of the Labrador Inuit land claim and the creation of the Nunatsiavut government. Nunatsiavut, which in Inuktitut means our beautiful land, was the first Inuit region in Canada to achieve self-governance, which is a proud accomplishment for all Labrador Inuit and Labradorians. Under the strong leadership of President Sarah Leo, Nunatsiavut has been vocal in calling for an inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women, as well as seeking recognition by the government for the suffering which occurred in residential schools and they have been looking to the government for an Inuit housing strategy for Nunatsiavut. Mr. Speaker, Labrador is stronger and more successful thanks to the major role that Nunatsiavut has played in economic development, health, and education. I congratulate them for their insight and their hard work, Mr. Speaker, and I congratulate them on this anniversary and look forward to many more years of successful governance in Nunatsiavut.
The honourable member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Mr. Speaker, Christmas and New Year's is fast approaching, and it's time to take advantage of the enhanced children's fitness tax credit. Hockey, ice skating, other winter sports are high priorities on many of the children's Christmas wish list. Now, Mom and Dad have a large Christmas gift also. We have doubled the children's fitness tax credit to $1,000 and made it refundable. Also, families in Lambton, Kent, Middlesex will be able to claim the new family tax cut, income split saving, up to $2,000 a year, and will receive the enhanced universal child care benefit of almost $2,000 for each child under the age of 6, and $720 for those aged 6 to 17. And you can start saving receipts for the extra $1,000 per child in increased child care expense deductions. Mr. Speaker, a Conservative government is about giving to Canadians. The opposition say they will take it away. Now, Mr. Speaker, that's not very Christmas-like.
The honourable member for Chambly-Beaudoin. The year is almost over, and the Conservative front bench is in over its head. We have a Veterans Affairs Minister who's not taking care of veterans, who announces funding over 6 years that's actually over 50 years, and who leaves the country when it's time to be accountable. We have an Environment Minister who reads the paper in the House and threatens to sue the Deputy Mayor of Rankin Inlet instead of helping her constituents who have to search for food at the dump, Mr. Speaker. We have an Agriculture Minister who attacks farmers' collective marketing rights and who is axing the Canadian Wheat Board. And yesterday, we had the Minister of State for Social Development who said that question period isn't the right place to talk about homelessness. One thing we can be sure of is an NDP cabinet won't let veterans be left behind, knee farmers, knee the homeless, no one else. 2015 is coming, Mr. Speaker, and Canadians are realizing that it's time to get rid of this government.
Mr. Speaker, the horrific terrorist attacks that occurred in late October are a reminder that ISIL is a very real threat to Canadians. It is the reason that we are working to strengthen the tools available to the police and the intelligence community in the areas of surveillance, detention, and arrest. The protection of Canada from terrorist acts is just the first step of our efforts. We will not overreact, but we will not underreact either. I was shocked yesterday to see the NDP oppose this common sense legislation to give our security agencies appropriate powers with robust oversight.
Terrible.
The NDP members from Esquimalt won the FUCA, Alfred Pellon, and Compton Stansett need to explain to the Canadians why they don't support giving our security agencies the tools they need to do their jobs. Why? This is further proof that the NDP simply cannot be trusted on important matters of national security.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hear, hear.
Oral questions, questions orales. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Veterans Affairs Minister flees the country to avoid answering questions about the Auditor General's damning report. Then we find out that when he did announce new funding for mental health for vets, he concealed the fact that the funding would be paid out over 50 years. Now we learn that the Veterans Affairs Ministry is actually being taken over by a staffer from the Prime Minister's office. One that we all remember from the Mike Duffy scandal. Doesn't it show a lack of confidence that the Prime Minister has had to impose third-party management on one of his own ministers?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I don't know what the Leader of the Opposition is talking about. I do note that the former Chief of Defence Staff, General Natinchuk, Walt Natinchuk, has become the new Deputy Minister of Veterans. As for the travels of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Foreign Affairs was in Italy with veterans of the Second World War who were celebrating the 70th anniversary of that successful Canadian military campaign. I can think of no greater honor than for the Minister of Veterans Affairs to accompany those Canadian veterans.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Maybe there's a fifth one in trouble and we don't even know. He should stop denying the obvious. The Prime Minister has put his Minister of Veterans Affairs under third-party management. The one who's running things now is the Prime Minister's Media Relations Director, Stephen Lecce, who's famous for his role in the Mike Duffy scandal. So if the minister can't even manage his own office, how come he's still the minister? Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, this Mr. Lecce has nothing to do with the Mike Duffy affair, but the new Deputy Minister of the Department of Veterans Affairs is the former Chief of Defence Staff General Natinchik. So he's an excellent choice. Our Minister of Veterans Affairs was with veterans in Italy, where they were celebrating the campaign that happened 70 years ago. It was the anniversary of that event in World War II. The Prime Minister doesn't trust the minister to manage his own office. He puts in one of his henchmen, but he lets him take care of thousands of veterans. Since the Prime Minister clearly no longer trusts his minister, what is he waiting for to throw him out?
Indeed lost confidence in this minister. Why is he still there?
Mr. Speaker, all ministers, of course, have chiefs of staff. I gather even the leader of the NDP has a chief of staff, obviously watching over the slow descent of that particular party. The leader of the opposition did raise another question about the accounting of funds in the new veterans announcement. I would point out, Mr. Speaker, that using Auditor General standards, accrual accounting over a life cycle, the costs of these new announcements, the government are in fact $200 million over the next 6 years. Obviously, Mr. Speaker, those funds are available to veterans over many decades, over their lifetime. We take care of veterans for their lifetime.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Reasons he doesn't want Nigel testifying, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, instead of answering serious questions about the Auditor General's scathing report on her hopeless mismanagement, the Environment Minister just ignored questions and sat there reading a newspaper. There are people scavenging for food in landfills in the Canadian North in 2014. It's shameful. And the government's response is to deny and ignore the tragedy. Will the Prime Minister tell his minister to put down the newspaper and start doing her job?
Hear, hear.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, there is no doubt that the people of Nunavut have ever had stronger representation. Speaker, of course, the Auditor General did not say what the leader of the NDP, the words the leader of the NDP would put in his mouth. The fact of the matter is that over $60 million, Mr. Speaker, a year are being put into this new program by the Government of Canada. Record investments. There's been a 25% increase in the shipping of healthy, perishable foods to the north, and a drop of $100 a month in the average family's food prices.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. We have a minister from the north who has contempt for those who are hungry, a minister of agriculture who can't deliver grain because he scrapped the Canadian Wheat Board, a minister of Veterans Affairs who've lost the confidence of the Prime Minister, and now a minister for social development who says during QP that it's not time to ask questions. These are the three horsemen of the Conservative apocalypse. How many will be put under tutorship by year's end? The whole front bench, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud to compare the track record of this government and that of the NDP.
Have Northerners, never have veterans, never have Canadian farmers been more supportive of the government. We have the record to show that, Mr. Speaker, and never have people been so little supportive of the NDP that actually had to rob parliamentary funds to pay for its own party office.
I'd ask the Right Honourable Prime Minister to avoid using terms like that in the House, as I did yesterday to the opposition. I don't think it's helpful to the tone of debate in the House. The Honourable Member for Papineau.
Mr. Speaker, veterans deserve honesty and they deserve to be a priority. To mitigate the damaging Auditor General's report, the Prime Minister trumpeted $200 million in veterans funding, hoping we wouldn't see the small print that explained that it was to be given over 50 years. Why billions for immediate tax breaks that help wealthy families like the Prime Minister's or my own, but only pennies for veterans?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this government has invested over $5 billion additional dollars in veterans programs. I know the Liberal Party has opposed that every step of the way, just as the Liberal Party has opposed every single tax cut we brought in for Canadian families. But, Mr. Speaker, no matter how many times the Liberal Party votes against veterans, no matter how many times it votes against tax cuts for Canadian families, this government will be moving forward with those.
The Honourable Member for Papineau.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's priority is tax breaks for the wealthy instead of meeting our sacred obligation to our veterans. His new plan is worth even less per year than the savings from closing the 9 Veterans Service offices. It is by now clear to all that the Prime Minister owes veterans an apology. Will he stand up and apologize?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the only party who has to apologize is the Liberal Party for voting against every single one of the $5 billion worth of investments we've made in Veterans Affairs. The Liberal Party tries to play veterans off against taxpayers, saying in some way that we can't do things for both. In fact, Mr. Speaker, as you know, the tax benefits that we've recently brought in for Canadian families benefit every single Canadian family in the country. And, Mr. Speaker, Canadians will tell the Liberal Party leader that when he goes around the country trying to figure out how he can take that money away from them to put them into the coffers of the government.
The Honourable Member for Papineau. Mr. Speaker, our veterans deserve to be treated with respect. This is a principle that has been disregarded by this Prime Minister. He prefers publicity and propaganda rather than providing them with essential psychological services. It's become clear to everyone that the Prime Minister's priorities are misplaced. Will he finally apologize to our veterans? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the only party that needs to apologize to veterans is the Liberal Party for having voted against $5 billion in investments for our veterans. It is this government that created almost all the services for mental health for veterans that hardly existed during the Liberal government period. At the same time, we've also cut taxes for Canadian families. We will continue to invest in our veterans, as well as having lower taxes for our families.
Mr. Speaker, the report tabled by the Public Sector Integrity Commissioner today paints a troubling picture. RCMP flights took off overweight, and then logs were falsified to cover it up. This report raises concerns from both a safety and an integrity perspective. But what's even more alarming is the lengths the Conservatives went to in order to keep this report from being public. Why did the Minister of Public Safety go to court to try and block the Integrity Commissioner from doing his job?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Well, the member's right. As this relates to a matter before the court, it would be inappropriate to comment any further, Mr. Speaker. But let's be clear. Let's quote what the Integrity Commissioner has to say about the RCMP. I am satisfied with the RCMP's response on this matter. So am I, Mr. Speaker, and while I expect the RCMP to conduct itself in the highest manner, we fully support them when they are protecting us, and we will continue to do so. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Alfred Pellan. Mr. Speaker, this is no longer before the courts. This is made public. The Integrity Commissioner's report is worrisome. There's no doubt about that. What's even more worrisome is the Conservatives' attitude and offensive against the auditors. The Conservatives came to power in 2006 promising transparency and protection for whistleblowers. But instead, they went to court to prevent the Integrity Commissioner from preventing his report on the RCMP. Why don't the Conservatives want that report made public? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, allow me to quote the Integrity Commissioner, who says this: I am satisfied with the RCMP's responses. So we thank the Commissioner for his report. We're waiting for the RCMP to continue to be professional in its dealings with the public and in its administration, and I'm confident they will continue to do their important work to protect the public.
The
Honourable Member for Saint-Lambert. There are cancer patients who are terminal, organ transplant patients, suicidal citizens, citizens in debt up to their eyeballs. There are the 14,000 Canadians who are awaiting a hearing from the Social Security Tribunal. Cases keep accumulating. Does the minister find it acceptable that thousands of Canadians have been waiting years to receive disability benefits that they are entitled to? And what will he do to correct the situation? Honourable Minister, first of all, we're talking of an appeal process. Those who appeal have already received a decision. We're trying to reduce the backlog at the Social Security Tribunal, the income security side. That's why we added 22 decision makers on a part-time basis, and we moved 12 from the EI side to the other side, and we'll continue to work with the chairman of the tribunal to accelerate the process.
Delta.
With more than 14,000 people waiting for a hearing now, the Conservatives' mismanagement of the Social Security Tribunal has created a situation where people who are terminally ill or so heavily in debt that they're suicidal have to beg to have their cases heard quickly. This is completely outrageous. Canadians paid for these benefits with their premiums. They shouldn't have to go begging when they need them. How could the Conservatives let this happen?
Well, I'm sure inadvertently, Mr. Speaker, the member is misleading us when she suggests that this is a denial of benefits for those who apply, when in fact we're talking here about individuals whose applications for benefits were rejected initially and who are then subsequently filing an appeal. We are working with the chair of the Social Security Tribunal to accelerate the process. We have added 22 part-time decision makers. We've moved 12 decision makers from the EI section to the pension section, and we're looking at additional actions necessary to speed up the process, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Newton North Delta.
Things have gotten so bad at the Social Security Tribunal that the tribunal is telling people who have been living without any income for multiple years that they can't expedite their hearing because it would be unfair to all the other people who are in exactly the same situation and still waiting for a hearing. Why can't the government get its act together instead of telling desperate people to get in line behind all the other people living without an income?
Good grief. Well, Mr. Speaker, any time that there is a process where people are applying, the normal process is for people to, for those applications to be considered in the order in which they were received. only in the sort of fantasy world of the NDP could they all be considered at the same time. That's obviously not possible in the real world, but in the real world we are working with the tribunal to add additional decision makers, to speed up the process, to reduce the backlog. And of course there is the good news, Mr. Speaker, that there's been a 90% reduction in the number of EI appeals being filed because of a fast-track process of reconsideration by officials in my department, which is working very well for EI applicants, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Halifax.
In the real world, Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives have failed Canadians just when they needed help the most. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Environment and her Conservative government have failed to rise to the urgent challenge of fighting climate change. The world's gathering in Lima right now to move forward. They're setting the stage for a global agreement on climate change that will be finalized next year in Paris. Will the minister finally deliver on their long-promised oil and gas regulations, or are they happy to make Canada an international pariah?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are playing a leadership role on an international stage. We have contributed $1.2 billion to more than 60 developing countries to reduce emissions and to adapt to climate change. We announced last week an additional $300 million for the Green Climate Fund, and we are a founding member of a major financial contributor to the Climate and Clean Air Coalition. We're also addressing short-lived climate pollutants under Canada's chairmanship of the Arctic Council. We will continue to protect our environment while keeping the economy strong. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives promised oil and gas regulations. They promised to act if the U.S. acted, and they promised to reduce our emissions. The only thing that they're any good at is breaking promises. And now we're not even on side with the Obama administration and what they're doing. The minister's own department admits that her 2020 targets are not going to be met by a long shot. So what exactly are the Conservatives going to offer in Lima?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Mr. Speaker, we are very proud of our record. We are a founding member of the Climate and Clean Air Coalition. We have made significant investments to help support green energy infrastructure internationally. We have one of the cleanest systems in the world. We have already regulated that transportation and electricity sector, and we are planning to reduce HFCs, one of the fastest growing greenhouse gas emissions in the world. And thanks to these actions, carbon emissions will go down to close to 130 megatons from what they would have been under the Liberals without introducing an NDP carbon tax.
Honourable member for Drummond. It's hard to trust this minister who rather attack her constituents rather than attack the problems they're experiencing. While the climate change conference is starting, our partners are wondering whether the Conservatives have noticed the agreement in the United States or whether they will come to Lima with more restrictive commitments. Will the Conservatives take climate change seriously and announce a credible plan to fight greenhouse gases?
Mr. Speaker, Canada has one of the cleanest electricity systems in the world, with 79% of our electricity supply emitting no greenhouse gas emissions. We have taken actions on two of the largest sources of emissions in Canada, the transportation sector, the electricity generative sector. Canada has also became one of the first major coal users to ban the construction of traditional coal-fired electricity generation units. Canada's per capita greenhouse emissions are now at the lowest level since we started recording in 1990, and the total emissions will go down by close to 130 megatons. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Montmagny-Nebraska. They're responsible for greenhouse gases, and they're no better for endangered species. Yesterday, the Committee on the Status of Endangered Wildlife have classified the beluga whale as an endangered species. According to scientists, pollution and noise disturbance are the main threat to the species. TransCanada reacted by suspending its work offshore from Kakuna for the winter. Will the Conservatives finally recognize that building an oil terminal there, right next to the beluga nursery, is a bad idea?
Speaker, and I can assure my colleague that our government is fully committed to protecting species at risk. That's why we've made significant investments in implementing the Species at Risk Act, and we're also taking additional measures under the National Conservation Plan. Regarding the Coastal-Wick reassessment of beluga, we'll follow the normal practice of making a status decision after consultations with Canadians, taking a new look at the scientific evidence, and all impacts are considered. But I should note, though, that the St. Lawrence estuary beluga is already listed, so it has already the needed legal restrictions.
The honourable member for Westmount Ville Marie.
Mr. Speaker, Saturday will be the 25th anniversary of the sad events of the Polytechnique massacre, and this government is not welcome because, as the survivors said, they do not share our values. They ignore the opinions of experts, police officers, women's groups that fight domestic violence. The survivors group is opposed to Bill C-42. Can the minister tell us how he can explain this bill to Quebecers and Canadian women? The Honourable Minister of Justice.
We remember the horrific events that took place in Montreal at l'École Polytechnique 25 years ago. And while we may never understand what occurred, why this happened, why these women were singled out for this horrific act of violence, we have to stand together, Mr. Speaker. We have to work continually to support victims, to hold offenders accountable, and, Mr. Speaker, we are creating a safer and more secure country by doing so. We are committed to continue in that effort, Mr. Speaker, but it will require tremendous efforts from all sides of the House and from all Canadians.
The honourable member for Random, Buren, St. George's.
Mr. Speaker, over the past year, the Conservatives have closed 9 regional Veterans Affairs offices, slashed the department's budget, and laid off staff. Veterans I know must wait months or even years to receive the mental health services they require. And the minister continues to mislead veterans and turn his back on those who attempt to voice their concerns. Meanwhile, in the estimates, the Conservatives have asked for another $5 million for advertising. This neglect of Canada's veterans must stop. When will the minister do the right thing and resign?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, we are making substantial improvements that are generating better outcomes for Canadian veterans, such as increasing investments while expanding rehabilitation and retraining, faster record transfer between National Defence and Veterans Affairs, better medical treatment, starting with better research, and this is all part of our effort to make things better for Canadian wounded veterans and their families, and that work is continuing, Mr. Speaker, and I'm proud to be part of that team.
The honourable member for Cape Breton-Canso.
Mr. Speaker, this is played out like a bad movie, and this minister has been the star in each of those scenes. We've seen the video clips of being chased down the hall by the wife of an injured veteran. We've seen him walk into a room full of decorated veterans. The veterans bent over at the waist because of the weight of the medals on their chest, and lecture them, Mr. Speaker. We've seen 3,500 people on the streets of Sydney, Nova Scotia, marching, veterans among them, these guys and women, men and women who marched into Europe, marched across Bosnia, marched into Afghanistan. Now they feel obliged to march for what is theirs. When will the Prime Minister remove this minister?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Well, Mr. Speaker, while the opposition continues to misrepresent and manifest all kinds of fear-mongering, I just want to remind the member opposite of his party's voting credentials. Didn't vote for disability and death compensation, didn't vote for Veterans Ombudsman funding, didn't vote for Pension Act payments, didn't vote for disability awards allowance, didn't vote for children of deceased veterans education assistance, Mr. Speaker. I hardly think we need to take any lessons from that party.
The Honourable Member for La Pointe-de-L'Île.
The responsibility of the government is for the Election Act. Yesterday, a former Conservative candidate was found guilty of having broken the Election Act and was responsible for reimbursing $10,000 to taxpayers. At the same time, the Conservatives admitted that they had received $25,000 from SNC-Lavalin through the use of false names. The Conservatives can't just say that it's SNC-Lavalin's fault. They have to give the money back. Will the Minister of Democratic Reform ensure that this happens? Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
There are strict personal donation limits of $1,200 a year. Of course, no corporate and union donations are allowed, Mr. Speaker. That's been the case since 2006 when this government brought in the Accountability Act. Mr. Speaker, SNC-Lavalin, if they are found to have donated illegally, we, as we would expect, all parties would repay those funds. Thank you.
Member for Timmins, James Bay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to follow up with the member on Section 404 of the Canada Election Act, because in this ongoing investigation into the illegal financing schemes by SNC-Lavalin, the Minister of International Development has now admitted that his riding association received $25,000 from SNC executives. We also learned that a Conservative candidate misappropriated $10,000 to pay for rent and clothes. So I'd like to ask my honourable colleague, if it's accepted that he received this money under the Canada's Election Act, does he not believe that this money has to be returned?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, as I just said, there are strict personal donation limits that were brought in by this government under the Accountability Act, Mr. Speaker. Corporate and union donations are not allowed, Mr. Speaker. Anybody found in violation of that will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. If SNC-Lavalin has done that, Mr. Speaker, we, and as we would expect all parties, would repay any of those funds, Mr. Speaker. At the same time, we were very disappointed when the NDP accepted $300,000 worth of illegal union donations, Mr. Speaker, of course in contravention of the law that we brought forward in 2006.
The honourable member for Welland.
Mr. Speaker, Farmers of North America, a group of more than 3,000 Canadian farmer investors, recently offered to buy the Canadian Wheat Board for, get this, about $250 to $300 million they thought it was worth. The Conservatives rejected the offer, didn't give a reason, just said no. Now we hear the Minister will hand over the Wheat Board's assets to the private sector for a grand total, get this, Mr. Speaker, zero. What? Oh, that's right. Nothing. Wow. Nada. No thank you, just give it away. So, simple question, Mr. Speaker. Why would the Conservative government give away these assets free to multinational corporations instead of simply selling it to Canadian farmers and actually gaining a real value for Canadian farmers?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, the easy answer is absolutely none of that is true or based on any kind of fact at all. Farmers of North America, their bid was adjudicated by a third-party auditor and legal team that the CWB put in place. This is not a political process, Mr. Speaker. As to the assets of the CWB, they will become part of a privatization plan as they look to recapitalize with another partner. That's exactly what's happening, Mr. Speaker. Under the auspices, as I said, all these tenders are looked at through the eyes of a third-party audit team as well as a legal team.
Mr. Speaker, let's see if I understand the Conservatives' business plan for the Canadian Wheat Board. First, you take the largest and most successful grain marketing company in the world, and then you give it away free of charge to an American agri-food giant who until recently was your greatest competitor. Mr. Speaker, my question is simple, and I ask it through you. Has the minister lost his freaking mind, or is he that...
That's... That's extremely unhelpful. The honourable member for Winnipeg South Centre.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, the Quebec government recently announced a legislative measure that will increase the cost of provincial daycare for many families. As it stands, the increase in cost would be linked to a family's income. Can the Minister of National Revenue inform this House on whether or not these additional childcare expenses will be federally deductible? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And the Honourable Minister of National Revenue.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my colleague for that question. As a direct result, our government's recently announced measures for families. 4 million families will benefit by an average of over $1,100 per year. I can confirm to the House that the additional child care related expenses referred to by my colleague will be federally deductible. While our government is putting money back in the pockets of Canadian families, the NDP and Liberals would take that money away. Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, because of a lack of money, the World Food Programme yesterday suspended its aid to Syrian refugees. This program helped 1.7 million Syrian refugees who are scattered across Jordan, Lebanon, Turkey, Iraq, and Egypt, and half of these people are children. This suspension, as winter approaches, will have a disastrous effect. What are the options that this government is considering to ensure that this program continues to meet the needs of Syrian refugees? Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, what the United Nations actually says is that the problem really is that countries who have promised money are not actually paying. But I'm pleased to inform the House that Canada is the third largest donor to the World Food Programme, and we are all paid up. Nevertheless, we are very concerned about the reports today of a shortage at the World Food Programme, and we are urgently examining ways that Canada continue to help with additional assistance to the World Food Programme and those affected populations in the region.
Member for Ottawa Centre.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Canada's last humanitarian announcement for Syria was almost a year ago, and since then we've seen this government abandon Syrian refugees to bring them to Canada. The Prime Minister claimed at the time he would do everything to ensure there wouldn't be a lost generation in Syria. But now the World Food Programme says the upcoming suspension of food will be disastrous for already suffering families and could escalate already high tensions in Syria and surrounding countries. So the question is, will the government increase aid now for Syrian refugees and live up to the Prime Minister's promise?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
As I said earlier, we are a country that, under this government, we pay what we pledge. We are the third largest contributor to the situation in Syria and Iraq, and we will continue to examine ways that we can help more. We are very concerned about the situation for the Syrian refugees, and Mr. Speaker, we will continue to work with our partners to ensure that assistance gets there.
Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the question period. I hope that that's not too hard for the Conservatives. Now, once again, community organizations are knocking on the doors of NDP members because they feel abandoned by the Conservatives. The minister says that all the money for the homelessness strategy was spent, but we're hearing different things on the ground. Organizations have filed their applications and have not received a response, whereas deadlines are approaching. When will these organizations have a clear answer regarding their funding? The Honourable Minister of State.
Well, as I had explained tried to explain to that member, but she wasn't at a meeting, she sent her staff instead. These project proposals come in and they are reviewed in Quebec by a joint committee of federal and Quebec civil servants. Mr. Speaker, what this is about is the NDP not supporting the evidence-based approach called Housing First. Housing First actually helps end homelessness. It's an approach that we have adopted with HPS. The opposition don't approve of it. They don't support it. It's why they don't support our approach, nor come into meetings to learn more about it.
The Honourable Member for Hull-Aylmer. Mr. Speaker, I was at that meeting, and what my colleague alleges is true. The minister says that investments have increased and that the homelessness partnering strategy and Housing First is working. Can the minister then explain why the application from the nonprofit organization from Hull-Aylmer that I gave to her yesterday has not received an answer. What will people in Outaouais do who do not have adequate housing? Honourable Minister of State.
The fact is, all of the funding under our HPS program is available for Quebec. Mr. Speaker, as proposals come in, as I explained to that member, there's a joint committee made up of Quebec officials and federal officials who make those decisions. Due diligence is taken to ensure that those programs and projects fit within the parameters. I would be happy to meet with her again to look at that specific project. Mr. Speaker, again, the evidence is in that Housing First works. We've committed and recommitted our investment, and we will keep focusing on getting real results, not putting money into activists that like the NDP would like to do.
Member for Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Reports of Inuit eating from landfill sites in Rankin, reports of hunger of Arctic remote communities, the Auditor General's damning report on Nutrition North's food subsidy program, and homelessness all add up to complete neglect of Canada's northern and Arctic residents. All the while, Mr. Speaker, the Minister for the Arctic threatens lawsuits and reads the daily newspaper. I ask, when will the abuse and neglect of the Inuit people stop?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the well-being of Nunavut and their families is a top priority, and it has always been my top priority. As an Inuk born and raised in Canada's north, I know how important access to healthy food is in our communities for our children and for our families, and developing healthy communities has and continues to be a top priority. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for St. Paul's.
Northerners are fed up with the Environment Minister's litany of denial. The people in Rankin Inlet are scrounging through the dump for food. Does she think APTN hired actors to do this? Is she denying that she contacted the Hamlet office demanding an apology to the Conservative Party and an endorsement for Nutrition North? Is she denying that her office threatened to sue officials from Rankin Inlet? Will the minister just put down her newspaper and do something for Northerners unable to feed their families?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the well-being of Nunavut have always been a priority of mine and continue to be a priority of mine. The allegations from the Deputy Mayor of Rankin Inlet regarding an apology are completely false. As an Inuk born and raised in Canada's north, I know how important it is for Northerners to have access to healthy food for our children and for our families, whether that be food you buy from a store or access to country food like the seal, polar bear, whales, and so forth. I will continue to stand up for Northerners and their food issue that continue to be a priority. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Burnaby Douglas.
Mr. Speaker, Conservative cuts to science continue to take their toll. Their cancellation of the Major Resource Support Program has put in jeopardy a national science facility here in Ottawa. The ultra-high field NMR facility is one of the most advanced spectrometers in the world. It's been used by hundreds of researchers for wide-ranging discoveries, including vision and carbon dioxide storage. We invested nearly $12 million to build it. Are the Conservatives really so short-sighted that they'll let it die for the want of $200,000?
The Honourable Minister of State.
Well, Mr. Speaker, our government, as this member knows, has made record investments in science, technology and innovation that creates jobs, opportunities and improves the lives of Canadians. Now, you should know that the National Research Council has come to an agreement with the University of Ottawa to ensure that research continues at the National Ultra-High Field Nuclear Magnetic Resonance Facility for solids over the short term, and the University of Ottawa plans to transfer the research to a new facility soon. He'd want to know that.
There you go.
Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mines. The Conservatives cut $1.7 million from science over the past 5 years. They should be ashamed. The National Ultra-High Field NMR facility for solids is another research facility that is at risk of closure because of the Conservatives' reckless cuts. Built in 2005, it is still lacking $200,000 for its annual operating costs. If this centre closes less than 10 years after its opening, that will be $12 million wasted. Why are the Conservatives such bad managers?
Honourable Minister of State.
Mr. Speaker, our government has made record investments in science and technology and innovation, which has created jobs and prosperity and improved the lives of Canadians. The National Research Council of Canada has reached an agreement with the University of Ottawa to ensure that research continues in the short term at the National Ultra-High Field NMR facility for solids.
The honourable member for Disney, Miss Nippy, Churchill River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians are concerned about the protection of our national security. Too often, the collective instinct is to underreact to these threats. While I do not believe that the government should overreact, I believe that the fulsome response to these threats is necessary. Last night, the NDP voted to block the Protecting Canada from Terrorists Act from proceeding. Despite the need to give security agencies the tools they need to do their job, could the Minister of Public Safety please update the House on the progress of this important legislation?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I am disappointed to learn that the NDP did not support this common sense legislation to empower our national security agencies. But I should not have been surprised since they opposed the Combat Terrorism Act. Monsieur le Président, comment peut-on s'opposer à...
Mr. Speaker, how can they oppose a measure that clarifies the responsibilities of CSIS by ensuring that people who are charged will have a fair trial? Now, luckily, my Conservative colleagues know how to stand up to ensure the safety of our country.
Member for West Melville Marie.
Mr. Speaker, when we debated the cluster munitions bill in committee, the government suggested that investing in companies that produce cluster munitions would be considered aiding and abetting the production of these devastating weapons. Is the government aware of a recent report by a Dutch organization called PAX, which lists two prominent Canadian financial institutions which appear to have made investments in companies producing cluster munitions? And what is it prepared to do if this report is true?
Good question. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, our government is proud to have participated actively in the negotiations in the Convention on Cluster Munitions, and we were one of the first countries to have signed on to the Convention in 2008. Mr. Speaker, our legislation fully implements Canada's commitment to the Convention and strikes a good balance between humanitarian obligation and preserves our national security and defence interests. Mr. Speaker, our bill prohibits the use, the deployment, possession, movement, import and export of cluster munitions and assistance in these activities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, earlier in question period, the Minister of Justice said this about December 6th, the 25th anniversary of the tragedy at Polytechnique. He said, "We may never understand what occurred, why this happened, why these women were singled out. We know why this happened. We know why these women were singled out. It's because they were women." That's what Marc Lépine wrote in a manifesto. Is there anything like that the Minister would like to correct in his previous statement?
Of course they were singled out because they were women, Mr. Speaker. That was exactly the point of expressing misunderstanding among anyone out there that would possibly suggest that women and girls should ever be targeted, should ever be subject to violence, Mr. Speaker. That is the emphasis. We want to bring people together around stopping, putting every effort into avoiding violence, anything that would ever put women and girls at risk. To try to make this a partisan issue on such a day, Mr. Speaker, is deeply disappointing from the minister, from the member.
Order. The Honourable Member for Vancouver South.
Mr. Speaker, like many Canadians, my constituents are concerned about the well-being of newborns, children and new mothers in the developing world. I was proud last weekend to see a Canadian woman, Michaëlle Jean, elected as the Secretary General of La Francophonie. But I was also proud to see our Prime Minister's continued leadership in the fight to save the lives of mothers and children in the developing world. Can the Parliamentary Secretary for Development update this House on the announcement the Prime Minister made in Dakar, Senegal?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it was a great weekend for Canada as one of our own was elected to lead La Francophonie, and it was also an opportunity to highlight our government's continued leadership on maternal, newborn and child health. On the margins of the Francophonie Summit, the Prime Minister announced an enormously important contribution that will enable the immunization of an additional 300 million children, and it aims to save the lives of up to 6 million. This announcement signals Canada's continued leadership in global efforts to improve the lives and the health of mums and babies.
Data Cynthia Sane.
Member for
the opposition.
The Minister has just asked us if there's anything that he could do to avoid putting women at greater risk. Actually, there is something that the government could do to avoid putting women or girls at greater risk. That's to withdraw a bill, C-42, that's before this House, because it will make exactly the type of assault weapon used by Marc Le Pen easier to transport, easier to have in Canada. The Ruger in question should be banned instead of being easier to get in Canada and to transport. Will he withdraw Bill C-42 if he's sincere about having better protection for women in this country?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I would urge the member of the opposition to be consistent and to support a bill that introduces obligatory training for anyone who wants to possess or acquire a weapon that attacks spousal violence, and that toughens up standards regarding the importation of illegal weapons. We are going to continue to put in place effective standards, and we are going to stand up to protect Canadian citizens, and I would urge the member of the opposition to support us, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member for Mr. Speaker, yesterday, the Minister of Finance said that the National Energy Board and it alone will determine whether the Energy East pipeline is safe for Canada's environment and for Canadians. In Quebec, we don't count on the NEB. We count on the Environmental Review Office, and it is up to this office to conduct an environmental assessment to determine whether the pipeline is safe, accepted by Quebecers, and what its impacts on greenhouse gas emissions will be. Will the Minister of Finance stop siding with pipeline lobbyists and pledge, finally, to respect the environmental process of Quebec? The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources. Mr. Speaker, contrary to the opposition, we will not take a position before the review is completed. It is the National Energy Board that contacts people who are directly affected and that has pertinent information in this regard. We base ourselves on science and facts to make decisions, and we would like to say that these projects will be studied solely if they are safe and secure for Canadians and without danger for the environment.
That concludes question period for today. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of the Minister of Foreign Affairs has a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, on Friday, the member from Hamilton Centre got up in the House and said that I had lied when I told my dear friend here that we would beat him in the Grey Cup. Now that we have beaten him, can he get up and apologize to me that I did not lie in the House, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Member for Hamilton Centre.
Well, it's a sad day for those of us in Hamilton, Speaker, and an even sadder one for me at this moment. But I think we all reflect back on the Speaker's ruling at that time when he said that this matter, indeed, given that it was in the future, would be resolved over the weekend. And it was. Not necessarily the way that we would like to have been resolved in Hamilton. So it is with a heavy heart, but a sense of national Canadian spirit that I congratulate our competitors on winning the Grey Cup. But make no mistake, Oski Wee Wee will be there next year.
Perhaps now we'll move on to orders of the day, order du jour.
Government orders, government bills, Commons. Resuming debate at report stage on Bill C-42. A second act to implement the Economic Action Plan 2014.
Resuming debate, reprise de débat, the honourable member for Lethbridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before question period, I had got into some of the benefits that are being provided to seniors through this budget, and we've also reviewed some of the benefits that they have received over the past several years since the Conservatives formed government. So I'm just going to finish up on some of the benefits to seniors and then move on to the benefits to farmers and the agricultural sector. So we've established a landmark tax-free savings account, which doesn't only benefit seniors, but it is particularly beneficial for seniors, as neither income earned in a TFSA nor withdrawals from a TFSA affect their federal income tested benefits credits and credits such as the GIS. And finally, we've introduced